Welcome to NFL Nexus, the place where we go way beyond the headlines to really dig into the strategies, the gambles, and those make or break moments that define the NFL. And today, man, we are locked in on Indianapolis because there is a fascinating, high-pressure storm brewing for the Colts. Seriously, this is not just another offseason, it's a defining moment for the entire franchise. The choices that general manager Chris Ballard and his crew make in the next few months, they're not just going to shape the 2026 season. They could set the course for the next 5 years. For better? Or for much, much worse. Let's get into it. And look, I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not being dramatic when I say that. You know how it is. Every year, all 32 teams talk about how important the upcoming season is. But for the Colts, this time around, it just feels different. This is a moment of truth. It's the end result of years of drafting, trades, and careful planning. After all these moves, some they planned for, and as we're going to see, some pretty unexpected ones, the front office has basically said, okay, the building phase is over. They've pushed all their chips right into the middle of the table. And that means they're sacrificing future picks, they're taking on big financial risks, and they're tying their future to veterans at the absolute peak of their game. The window to win, it's not just opening, it's wide open right now. And this quote right here from our source material, it really just grounds the whole thing. It pulls it out of the world of speculation and makes it real. This isn't just something the media is saying, this is the pressure cooker that the organization is actually living in. For general manager Chris Ballard, who spent years putting this roster together piece by piece, and for head coach Shane Steichen, who's installed this whole system, this season is basically a final exam on their entire time here. Their jobs, their legacies in Indy, could literally come down to what happens in the next 12 months. They are deep in what the front offices call win now mode. And that means every single decision they make gets filtered through one simple question. Does this get us closer to a Super Bowl this year? That kind of urgency, it changes everything about how you build a team and forces you to think about moves that a rebuilding team wouldn't even dream of. Now, hey, before we break down the first of these huge gambles, just a quick word. If you're into this kind of deep dive NFL analysis and you want to see more of it, the absolute best way to help us out is to subscribe to NFL Nexus and hit that like button. It honestly helps us grow so much. And we really do want to build a community here, so please jump in the comments and let us know what you think about the Colts strategy. On a quick side note, we're a small team, but we're passionate, and we actually created some fun, football-themed coloring books. They're perfect for the little fans in your life, or, let's be real, for any of us looking for a chill way to unwind. The link is right there in the description. Your support helps us keep doing what we do and gives us the time to put these explainers together. We appreciate it more than you know. Okay, let's get back to it. All right, let's get into the first major piece of this puzzle that has to fall into place. See, every NFL offense has a few, let's call them load-bearing walls. Players who are so important to the whole plan that if you take them out, the entire structure starts to get wobbly. Well, the Colts just lost one of those walls. The offense took a major hit when a cornerstone player left. And how they decide to fill that spot isn't just about replacing stats on a spreadsheet. It's about completely redefining who they are on offense. So when we say an offensive void, what does that really mean, like, on the field? It's so much more than just losing a name on the roster. The Colts traded their #1 wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr., to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that move didn't just take out a player. It ripped out a fundamental piece of their offensive identity. It creates a vacuum. A guy like Pittman completely changes how a defense plays you. He's the guy who draws the opponent's best cornerback, which frees up everybody else. His absence leaves this massive hole in their passing game that just ripples through the whole offense. It changes the routes guys run, it changes the quarterback's reads, and it puts a ton of pressure on the other receivers to step up into roles they might not be ready for. Now, this slide is so important because it really breaks down the specifics of the problem. Pittman wasn't just some receiver. He was the offense's security blanket, the glue. The source calls him the reliable, tough yards guy. And think about what that means in a real game. It's 3rd and 7, the place is going nuts, and the QB absolutely needs to make a throw to move the chains. Pittman was that guy. He was a master of those tough, contested catches right over the middle. And his physical presence is what let the other guys on offense be great at what they do. You've got Alec Pierce, who's a pure deep ball, big play threat. His job is to just run by people and stretch the field. Then you have Josh Downs, the shifty little slot guy who creates nightmares for linebackers underneath. Pittman was the bridge between those two. Without him, defenses can now just stick a safety over the top of Pierce, and boom, the deep threat is gone. They can double team Downs in the slot and take away the easy throws. And yeah, the Colts signed Nick Westbrook-Ikine, and he's a great depth guy and a beast on special teams, but he's not the high-volume, every-down X receiver you need to build your passing game around. So that brings us to the huge, multi-million-dollar question sitting on Chris Ballard's desk. The first big wave of free agency, it's come and gone. The top-tier guys, the game changers, they've already signed their huge contracts. They're gone.
The NFL draft is always an option, sure, but the Colts traded away their first-round pick. And finding a rookie who can step in on day one and be a 100-catch guy without a first-round pick is, well, let's just say it's a long shot. They need a veteran. They need someone who gets the little details of running routes in the NFL, who can handle getting beat up by pro corners, and who can walk into that huddle and immediately command respect. So, who's out there? Who's left that has the right skills and fits this very specific, very demanding need? And the answer, at least according to our source material, might not be one of the usual big names. It might just be a tough, physical, and maybe a little underrated receiver coming from one of the NFC's best teams, Jauan Jennings of the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, now what's really fascinating when you look at the data here is the story the numbers are telling. Jennings isn't a guy who's been a stat machine his whole career. After a few years of finding his way, he really broke out in 2024, putting up almost 1,000 yards and making himself a key part of that 49ers offense. But look closer at 2025. His catches and his yards actually went down, right? A casual fan might look at that and think he took a step back. But the most important number is in that last column. His touchdowns went way up, from 6 to 9. So what does that tell you? It tells you his role changed. He became this incredibly efficient and trusted weapon in the red zone. You know, when the field gets short inside the 20 and the passing windows get tiny, his physicality and his great hands made him the go-to guy. He might not have had the same overall numbers, but his impact when it mattered most, it grew. And that is a trait that front offices and coaches absolutely fall in love with.
But here's the catch, and it is a massive one: the money. This is where the gamble really comes into play. SpotTrack, which is a really trusted site for this stuff, projects Jennings' market value at a wild $22.6 million a year. Now, let's just put that into perspective for a second. Michael Pittman Jr., the guy he'd be replacing, a guy who's been a more consistent, high-volume receiver for a longer time, he just signed with the Steelers for $17.5 million a year. So this is the whole problem, right? Would the Colts really be willing to pay this huge premium for Jennings, a player who's really only had 1.5 good seasons, when the more proven guy he's replacing didn't even get that much? It's a huge financial risk that just screams win-now pressure and shows how few options are left out there. And this slide right here, this number perfectly shows that win-now thinking we were talking about. Jauan Jennings will be 29 years old when the 2026 season starts. Now, for a young, rebuilding team, signing a 29-year-old receiver to a big multi-year deal, that's a huge red flag. You're paying for his best years, but you probably won't be good enough to compete until he's already on the decline. But for the 2026 Colts, his age isn't a bug, it's a feature. They don't care about how he's going to look when he's 33. They are paying for peak performance right now in this very specific, very short championship window. His age lines up perfectly with their urgent need to win. So, okay, forget the age and the money for a second. Why Jennings? Well, on paper, the fit in their system is almost perfect. He's coming from Kyle Shanahan's offense in San Francisco, which, everybody knows it's one of the best systems in the league. And Shane Steichen's offense in Indy shares a lot of the same DNA. Both systems are built on a powerful running game. The 49ers have Christian McCaffrey, the Colts have Jonathan Taylor. When you commit to the run like that, it forces defenses to bring their safeties down to help stop it. And that opens up the play-action pass, where the quarterback fakes the handoff and then attacks the defense deep. For a physical, possession-type receiver like Jennings, who is great at finding the soft spots in coverage, this is a perfect, seamless transition. He wouldn't have to learn a whole new language, he'd just be speaking a slightly different dialect of one he's already fluent in. And to top it all off, the 49ers just made that huge move to sign Mike Evans, which could make Jennings the odd man out, and, more importantly, available.
So let's just say the Colts do it. They pull the trigger, they sign Jauan Jennings, even with that crazy price tag, and they solve their receiver problem. That's a huge win for the offense. But in today's NFL, fixing your offense is only half the battle. You can have the best offense in the world, but it doesn't matter if your defense can't get a stop. And the Colts have an equally urgent and maybe even more critical problem on the other side of the ball that could sink their entire season. Every great NFL defense is built around one thing: pressuring the other team's quarterback. The perfect setup is to have two pass rushers, one on each end, who can just terrorize offenses. The Colts have one half of that equation. They have a legit young star in Laiatu Latu. He's a guy you can build around. But on the other side of that defensive line, there is a giant, flashing red light. One great rusher can be taken out of a game with double teams and chip blocks. To have a truly dominant pass rush, you have to have a second guy they have to worry about. And right now, the Colts have a massive need for a proven starting edge rusher. And without one, their defense has a flaw that could be fatal. So let's just break down how they got here. The Colts' #1 target in free agency was supposedly Trey Hendrickson, a premier guy who gets you double-digit sacks every year. They went after him hard, but they couldn't get the deal done, and he signed somewhere else.
and that one failure has left them in a really tough spot. As the roster looks right now, the guy starting opposite Latu would be Arden Key. Now look, Key is a good player. He's a high-energy, versatile rusher who is at his absolute best when you use him as a rotational guy, bringing him in on third down to get after the quarterback. But asking him to be the starter for a full 17-game season, setting the edge against the run and rushing the passer 40 times the game, you're putting him and the entire defense in a bad position. It creates a clear, obvious weakness that every single offensive coordinator they play against is going to circle and attack all game long.
Okay, this is where things get truly wild. With the free agent market for elite pass rushers pretty much empty, the Colts might have to get really, really creative. And according to our source, they have a secret weapon hiding up their sleeve. A shocking, completely unexpected trade chip that could let them make a blockbuster move and solve their defensive problem for good. And this is the moment where the Colts' entire offseason could take a turn that almost nobody saw coming. We're not talking about a standard trade for a day 2 draft pick here. We are talking about a potential franchise-altering gamble that involves a player who, not that long ago, was supposed to be the future. And there it is, the bombshell. This quote from Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN sent actual shockwaves through the league. Anthony Richardson, the quarterback the Colts spent the number 4 overall pick on, a player with a crazy combination of size, speed, and arm talent that you almost never see, has been given permission to look for a trade. He is officially on the market. For a team to move on from a top 5 quarterback this quickly, it's almost unheard of. This changes everything. Okay, let's walk through the logic of this proposed trade because I know, at first glance, trading a former top 5 pick for a guy who's not a quarterback sounds nuts. But when you start connecting the dots, it actually starts to make a surprising amount of sense for everybody. So step 1, we know Richardson is on the block. That's the starting point. Step 2, the Colts showed us their hand when they signed veteran Daniel Jones to that massive 2-year contract, reportedly worth up to $100 million. You do not pay a quarterback that kind of money to be a backup. Jones is their guy, period. And that slammed the door shut on Richardson's future in Indy. Step 3, now look over at the Arizona Cardinals. They are just starting a full rebuild. Their quarterback room right now is a competition between 2 decent but, not spectacular journeymen, Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew. They desperately need a young quarterback with elite talent to build their franchise around. And step 4, the Cardinals have exactly what the Colts need, a star edge rusher in Josh Sweat. But Sweat's turning 29. He's in his prime right now, which means he doesn't really fit Arizona's long-term rebuilding plan. His highest value to them is as a trade chip. And this slide right here perfectly lays out the potential win-win. It's a classic case of 2 teams on totally different timelines, solving each other's biggest problems. The Colts get the proven, win-now pass rusher they desperately need in Josh Sweat, making their defense ready for a championship run. And, this is key, they get him by trading a player who's not in their future plans, instead of giving up valuable draft picks. And the Cardinals? They get what is maybe the most valuable thing in all of sports, a young, cheap quarterback with superstar potential. They get their franchise cornerstone in Anthony Richardson, a guy they can build around by trading away a veteran who probably wasn't going to be on the team when they were ready to contend anyway. So here's the proposed deal. The idea is that the Colts could get a premier edge rusher like Josh Sweat by packaging Anthony Richardson with a 3rd-round pick. This is a creative and honestly a potentially brilliant move. It lets them turn an asset, this young quarterback who doesn't fit anymore, into an elite player at a position of huge need. It's aggressive, for sure, and it helps them win now, but it's also smart because it lets them hang on to their most valuable day 1 and day 2 draft picks, which they can then use to keep adding depth to the rest of the roster.
So let's zoom out and look at the whole picture here. What we're looking at is a 2-part, high-stakes offseason plan. First, you sign Jauan Jennings to a contract that could make him one of the highest-paid receivers in football, based on what he could be as much as what he's done. And second, you trade a former number 4 overall pick, a player with unbelievable physical talent, to fill a huge hole on your defensive line. This is a bold, aggressive, and incredibly risky blueprint for a championship. And that really is the billion-dollar question hanging over the entire city of Indianapolis. If these gambles pay off, if Jennings turns into that reliable, tough-as-nails receiver they need, and Josh Sweat becomes that dominant pass rusher they're missing, the Colts could instantly jump into that top group of contenders in the AFC. But if they fail, if Jennings is overpaid and doesn't perform, or even worse, if Anthony Richardson goes to Arizona and becomes a superstar while the Colts are just stuck in the middle, this could set the whole franchise back for years and trigger another painful, full-scale rebuild. It is a high-wire act for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, and there is absolutely no safety net. So what do you think? Is this a blueprint for a Super Bowl, or is it a path to disaster? Let us know what you think down in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like this explainer and subscribe to NFL Nexus so you don't miss what we've got coming up next. We'll see you next time.